As you all are aware, the news conference today is about the budget process, about approaching the second year of the budget and what adjustments are being made in this period of time between the two budgets. And I'm joined today by council people and department heads, Roy Christensen and Larry and Gaylord Baird and Carl Eskridge and Chief Blymeister and Public Safety Director, whatever his name is, Tom Cassidy, of course. But before we start the discussion on the budget, I want to say, I think we all want to say a few words. Each of these persons will speak and can speak for themselves. But I think it's fair to say that collectively we do want to acknowledge the terrible explosion that took place in the city yesterday. And indeed, we want to be sure that the families know that everybody is praying for their injured family members, and we understand the horrible period they're going through right now. Our thoughts are also with the people in the neighborhood. It was an incredible explosion by all descriptions, and houses, many houses in the neighborhood were damaged. The excellence of our public safety team, of course, was once again on display yesterday. 911, Lincoln Fire, the police department, all acted swiftly and professionally to keep people safe and to prevent further damage. I also want to thank the utility crews that were out there on the job almost immediately. We heard many reports of people who rushed to the scene of the accident just on their own, demonstrating the basic character of the people of Lincoln, I think, who are there to help their neighbors whenever anything like this occurs. There's still a lot of work going on at the site today. We continue to encourage people to stay away from the site if possible, to allow the different people from the city and utility companies and so forth to do what they need to do. The city has building inspectors in the area today to help people determine whether their own homes are safe to re-enter. And we have investigators there, of course, as we always do in these situations, to investigate and determine the cause of what happened. So we finally just want to stress to you that the cause has not been determined, and we want to caution the public about rushing into judgment on the matter before any cause is in fact determined. So with that, I would just thank our own police and fire again for their outstanding work, and there will be more follow-up on that situation, of course, by and by. So with that, let's shift to the business of the day, which is the budget situation. And, you know, it all comes down to these three things. These are the important spending adjustments that have been proposed in the 2017-18 budget. First, the property tax rate will be reduced by 1.6 cents, dropping the city's levy from 33.4 cents to 31.7 cents, and returning $3.5 million to the taxpayers, $3.5 million to the taxpayers. Second, 6 new police officers will be hired at a cost of approximately $500,000. And third and finally, a yearly budget of $500,000 will be established to purchase replacement fire engines and fire trucks. We believe it is a very thoughtful, balanced approach to addressing the mid-biennium budget adjustments. A 1.6 drop in the city's tax rate is the largest one-year reduction in over a decade. No other major local government is lowering their levy as much as the 1.6 reduction that the city is proposing today. At the same time, we have prudently chose to increase our spending on the city's #1 priority this year and every year, which is public safety. The city's faster than expected growth is straining police resources. We all understand that. Adding 6 new police officers will help LPD continue to provide the outstanding level of service that has been characteristic in this community and which is expected by the public. Lincoln has a low crime rate and a high quality of life. 6 new police officers help ensure that the crime rate stays low and that the police department has the resources to deliver the services that we need as a city. The state of Lincoln Fire and Rescue fire apparatus must also be addressed. 2 more engines have reached the point where they are now categorized under fire documents as in need of immediate replacement. That's happened just since last year's budget was adopted. The problem is that we haven't had a consistent funding source for replacing fire engines and trucks for almost 20 years. The city has not regularly budgeted funds to replace fire engines and city trucks on an annual basis since the late 1990s. Since that time, we have either used one-time money or borrowed to replace fire vehicles. Those strategies haven't allowed us to keep pace with the replacement needs. By budgeting $500,000 annually, we can deal with the problem every year until it is solved. While this is a good start, everybody needs to understand that this is just a start. We will have to devote more money to replacing LFR emergency response vehicle fleet. It is a critical element, of course, to keeping families safe, and more funding will have to be found in the future in that area. That said, the proposed $500,000 investment in fire apparatus is a big step in the right direction for the city. The choice not to address needs in other departments at this time should not be interpreted as inattention. The conscious decision to delay addressing those substantial needs reflected our uniform belief that public trust is better established by a full, open debate over a longer period of examination that is represented by the regular biannual budget process, which occurs later this year and next. Finally, I want everyone to take away from this press conference what I think may be the most important piece of news of all, and that is that we've worked hard to nurture bipartisanship, a way of doing business that seems unfortunately lost at the higher levels of government. I originally asked the city council members for a 1.5 increase in this budget. If partisanship had been paramount, most would have expected the council to support that recommendation. But today I'm proposing a $1 million increase because council members and the mayor were willing to compromise. In short, we found common ground and made an agreement that benefits everyone in the community. The property tax levy will drop by nearly 5% while adding more police officers and replacing dangerously worn out fire apparatus. This is a win for the kind of common sense leadership that I think is in short supply these days in government. It's a better way to run the city, and we want to keep trying to get to that place. So with that, there are 3 council members here today who all worked hard to do what they thought was the right thing for Lincoln's future with this budget. So let's hear from them. These are the people who worked to find consensus, and we'll start with our friend Roy Christensen. Roy, the podium's yours.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to acknowledge the heroes in the neighborhood in Southeast Lincoln who responded yesterday in the wake of a house explosion to run to the aid of their neighbors. I want to thank the first responders, Lincoln Police and Fire, who quickly arrived on the scene to put out the fire and administer aid to the injured. City government plays an important role in the lives of Lincoln residents every day, funding infrastructure, public safety, and a safety net for the least fortunate among us are key roles of government. The events of yesterday in a quiet middle-class neighborhood show how our community, those in uniform and our neighbors, can and do come together in times of crisis. Our residents deserve the best efforts of their elected officials in working together to keep our city moving forward stronger together. The budget resolution we're talking about today cuts the city property tax rate and invests in public safety. This is a good day for our community. Today is a good day for Lincoln taxpayers whose property tax rate will be cut by nearly 5% with this budget resolution. That's a savings next year of $28 for owners of a $150,000 home. It's a good day for seniors, families, and businesses in our community who every day depend on police and fire protection from the city. Putting more police on our streets and in our neighborhoods and accelerating the replacement of our aging fleet of fire trucks is a win for those Lincoln seniors, families, and businesses. And it's a good day for our community when elected leaders who do not always agree can find common ground and do the right thing for the city. As a conservative small business owner, my budget priority on the City Council this year is to hold taxpayers harmless from an unexpected valuation increase that was projected to boost the city property tax collections by $3.5 million. That's what this budget plan does. The 1.625 cent reduction in the city's property tax levy in this budget agreement keeps that $3.5 million in the pockets of Lincoln homeowners and businesses. Some may say we aren't facing an emergency, so why are we increasing our investment in public safety in the middle of a 2-year budget? My response is that if you were the victim of a crime, a health scare, or a fire, you are going to want that additional police officer on the street, or a fire truck that can rapidly come to your aid without the concern of maintenance issues. For those Lincoln residents who need public safety services, this additional investment is justified. I want to thank the mayor and the city staff and other council members for their work on this important agreement. Thank you. Leary?
I want to echo Roy's sentiments and just say that earlier this year when we found out about the assessor's revaluation, I promised to lead an effort to cut the tax rate to shield homeowners from the full impact of the unexpected and significant increase in property tax. We are providing that tax relief. I am keeping my promise. We, a bipartisan group of elected officials, are keeping that promise and providing tax relief to Lincoln taxpayers. And we are also keeping our commitment to public safety by putting more police officers on the ground, by improving our fire apparatus and the fleet that is necessary to rush to homes in the event of emergencies like the tragic one we saw yesterday. That is so important. This is a good day, as Roy said, for Lincoln.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is a great day for Lincoln, and want to thank the mayor and my colleagues, city departments, for all the good work that has been done. This is our third biennial budget, and It's a time, usually when we get to this point, starting the second year of the budget, we don't expect drama. We don't expect changes. In fact, the purpose of the biennial budget is for that consistency, so that departments know what's coming ahead and you can plan for it. Use time for planning, dreaming, doing things maybe in a different way and not just the same way year after year. And so we come to this point in this biennial budget, though with an unforeseen circumstance, and that unforeseen circumstance was something we didn't know would happen a year ago, when the county assessor said that he was going to reassess properties across our community. Well, that meant a change in terms of revenue. It also meant that we had to think about, what is it that we can do to serve our community. So there were two things that were important to me in this, and I'm so pleased that this is the direction that we're going. In early 2017 was a part of a task force that was involved, made up of people from the community and Lincoln Police, who looked at our teams. Lincoln Police has 5 teams. The idea was we could possibly reduce to 4 teams and have some staff flexibility, allowing us to stretch resources farther into the community. As this group met over early months this year, we heard about the needs of Lincoln Police. We heard about how there are particular areas and teams that are understaffed at times, and what that means when you pull somebody off a team and go to another team, and how that officer may not have the backup that he or she needs to have, putting that officer at risk, putting the community potentially at risk. What I learned from that was that really reducing the teams wasn't the answer. We need more police officers. And so I'm pleased that we're going to be doing that. I also learned in a conversation with a firefighter who serves in Northwest Lincoln, talked to him last winter and said, how are things? He said, well, when I go to a fire, I have to drive slow because I'm afraid my engine won't make it. When our fire department responds, we don't want them driving slow. I've done some research in different equipment needs in our community and with the fire department, and learned that there's one particular engine, and this is one out of about 6 that has over $200,000 in needs to rehab that engine to make it really fully functional. But this one requires $283,000 to get it fully operational. A new engine costs about $450,000. In talking to LFR, what their biggest priority is, we need engines. We need good engines. And so this helps us to get there. It is an emergency situation. Just as we found out yesterday, you need to have that equipment ready to respond at any time. So I'm very grateful for this adjustment to the budget. I think it is very responsible to serve this community, and look forward to working with my colleagues to get it done. Thank you.
Chief Cassidy?
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the City Council members for approving this change in the budget for the mid-biennium resolution. It's deeply needed. I want to talk to you primarily about growth and how that's impacting public safety in Lincoln, and how some of that growth has been quite unforeseen. We know that Lincoln's a growing community, and its growth rate is pretty well documented from year to year. We've been growing at about 1.1 to 1.5% in population every year, but geographic growth is another matter that we don't talk about as much. The city is expanding geographically, and I know that everyone in this room has had the experience sometime in the past year of driving into a part of Lincoln they haven't been for a while, and they went over that ridge line and they looked at the person in the passenger seat and said, where did all of this come from? Because of the new development that we all see when we cross over Yankee Hill Road, or when we cross over Interstate 80 to the north, or when we drive into Southwest Lincoln, or when we cross over 84th Street at Adams or Layton. We see that with our own eyes. And indeed, the city has been expanding geographically quite a bit. And we also anticipate geographic growth through the comprehensive plan here in Lincoln. But during the past year, the comprehensive plan has been modified. And we've had at least 3 amendments to the comp plan that I can think of here in 2017, where we moved land that was in the lowest tier, land that would have been developed sometime after the year 2040, into Tier 1, the highest tier, which means that land will develop much more quickly. And those 3 locations are the new Southeast Service Center of Lincoln Electric System near South 98th and Rokeby Road. It's a large parcel that's located on the area between 70th and 84th, Rokeby and Saltillo Road. And then it's an area at 7th and Alvo Road here in Lincoln. And these amendments were made so that that land's going to develop more quickly. Certainly didn't know that was going to happen a year ago. So it's an unforeseen change. And I personally think that these changes in the comprehensive plan will probably lead to even more growth. Now that we all have know that the South Beltway really is going to happen, and that the city has identified the funding that it needs for that, and that that's funded now for the city's share of that match, I would anticipate that we'll see more and more land moving up in the comprehensive plan that we did not expect at this time last year. So the growth is really impacting us. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about a little bit is the status of fire apparatus. There was a time when I was a young police officer that the city routinely replaced one of its major fire apparatus every year. It was in the budget, and year by year we were replacing one of the big fire trucks or one of the fire engines. That ended in the 1990s. And since that time, it's been a real struggle to keep the fire fleet, frontline apparatus, trucks and engines in good shape. It's not that we haven't replaced any, but we've done it in fits and starts. With one-time money, on a couple of occasions by borrowing money, and that's no way to run a railroad. As a result, we haven't replaced enough apparatus, we haven't done it on a timely enough basis, and we suffer the results of that with a fleet that has done nothing but deteriorate since the late 1990s. And although we've made a little bit of progress on that lately by repurposing some of that borrowed money and borrowing even more money to replace a few of our apparatus, the real solution to the problem is to get on a consistent, regular replacement schedule where money's in the budget on a consistent basis to do that replacement. We're having a problem right now with mechanical issues, frame deterioration on some of our apparatus that are 12 years old. We've got a number of apparatus that are over 20 years old. We've got about 14 apparatus that exceed the industry standards for replacement, that are in critical need of replacement. And this is going to help us not only deal with the immediate problem, but hopefully get on a more productive track where we are back to where we were in the 1980s and the 1990s, and that's regularly replacing fire apparatus on a consistent scheduled basis. Now, in addition to the condition of the fire apparatus that's needed attention for a long time, it's also gotten worse in the past year. Again, unforeseen. 2 more of those major apparatus crossed the threshold from okay to in need of immediate replacement. And that's a series of criteria that are based on industry standards managed by our Chief of Logistics, Kendall Warnock. And he tells me that we've got 2 more apparatus that crossed that threshold within the past year, and again, not anticipated this time last year. The police department, in addition, is suffering not only from the growth in the geography of Lincoln, but in changes in the workload that are placing more of a burden on the police resources. And again, these are things that weren't anticipated a year ago, and Chief Bleimeister will tell you a little bit about that.
Thank you, Director. And just on behalf of the members of the Lincoln Police Department, Mayor, Roy, Leary, and Carl, thank you very much for your leadership and your continuing support to address the constantly evolving needs of public safety. Also want to thank Nancy, Marlena for being here today to help us maintain this in a transparent way and showcasing what we're planning to do today. February 6th of 2017 was the first time that we learned that the Public Service Commission Keystone Pipeline hearings were going to be held in the heart of downtown Lincoln. Months of preparation followed, and because of partnerships and the standards of our community, this unscheduled event that necessitated significant policing resources was an example for our country to follow, not an exhibition of hate and violence as exhibited this weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia. The week of the Keystone Pipeline hearings was filled with events that we knew about in advance, the Lancaster County Super Fair, but others that we did not know about. Back-to-back significant deployments of our SWAT team, the Bruno Mars concert at the Pinnacle Bank Arena. I also want to talk about how our community is not immune from the political polarization that continues to gain momentum throughout the country. While Public Safety Director Cassidy served you as Chief of Police, one officer would attend a congressional town hall meeting. July 31st of this year, 10 on and off-duty officers were present for Jeff Fortenberry's events. So in my opinion, the demands for police resources will continue to escalate. This weekend is just another example. It's a vibrant community. Kendrick Lamar is at the Pinnacle Bank Arena on Friday night. Terrence Crawford, the fight is going to be held there on Saturday. The whole time, Ribfest is being showcased, and then we interject UNL volleyball. Scheduled and unpredictable needs for police unravel in weeks, but we need to talk about, too, the fact that it can take up to 2 years to recruit, vet, and train new officers. We talk all the time internally about public safety being a partnership. Lincoln Fire and Rescue, Public Works, other law enforcement agencies in our community, and service providers. In the last few months, we learned that the Bridge Behavioral Health Unit, Civil Protective Custody Unit, was not receiving the anticipated revenues as a result of the change in Medicaid managed care program for the state. More than 3,400 times in 2016, the Lincoln Police Department and other law enforcement agencies depended on those services to keep our community safe and protect those who are unable to care for themselves. We continue to look for collaborative solutions, but without this service, the expectations of our community and community safety could go unmet. Another unanticipated reason why the need for police officers continues. With that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, questions?
How many police officers do we have, and then will we have, and are all the positions filled?
Nancy, currently our authorized strength is 329 commissioned officers. This will add 6 to that, and as you heard Carl speak about with the Boundary Review Committee, we have 5 geographic teams, and we're maintaining that in 2018. So 5 of the officers will be dedicated to each geographic team, and we're going to continue with the 6 to bolster our first-line supervision efforts, because those are the individuals that mentor, develop, and oversee the actions of the line officers. So the cumulative total will be 335.
Could you talk about how much of a difference will 6 officers make?
Certainly. 6 officers is continuing to address, as you heard Public Safety Director Cassidy talk about, the 1.2 to 1.5 continuing population expanse. There's so many different matrices, Marlena, to look at how we measure what the need for police resources is. One of the easiest is to look at ratios of officers per 1,000. Not necessarily the best, but one way, and it's consistent across the country. And this 6 officers will make an impact. It will make an impact on the safety and security, and also provide alternate scheduling options so resources aren't as stressed, as evidenced by all of these upcoming events that a couple years ago we didn't know would be here.
How many new fire trucks have we gotten our engines? Apparatus is such an ugly word in the last couple of years.
Well, a couple of years ago, we bought 2 used apparatus to get us by, one from the Hickman Volunteer Fire Department and the other one from Canada. That was a stopgap measure. When the lease payments ran out on the engines that we acquired back in 2006, we were able to use that money to enter into a new financing arrangement. And we've received 2 trucks. We have 3 engines on the way. So we're going to have some immediate relief here that's really good and really needed, that will help us with the 14 apparatus that we have now that are in need of immediate replacement. But the real key is getting a consistent dollar amount in the budget so that we can replace approximately 1 large apparatus every year going forward.
And Mayor, with this allocation for new fire apparatus, how do you plan to get that going, or keep that going? You know, we have this money here now, we're trying to get the money here now, but for the future, what is your plan to keep that going?
Well, the plan, simply put, is to be sure that an expenditure at that level or higher is put into the annual budget going forward. In the past, as you're probably aware, we went through, in the second year of my term, the greatest economic downturn in the history of the country, but one. And a recovery period went along with that, of course, and an emphasis on economic development and building the engine of the city to produce revenues and to produce wealth and a quality of life. And now, hopefully, at that higher level, we can start to take increased revenues and reinvest in those things that make right, not just this item in the budget, but a whole number of items in the budget that still need repair. But we want to do that with a process, with the processes that are most transparent to the public, and using processes which involve the public as we move forward. And so for most of the matters that those of us here recognized as needing additional revenue, the decision we wanted to make in the end was to save those discussions for the regular budget process when all the citizenry could see what was happening and participate in what was happening and have a voice in which priorities we place first. We never have enough money at one time to make everything right. But we continue to have in our minds the need to get everything right as the citizenry sees it, starting with public safety and going down from there in the hierarchy of the public's view of what's most essential.
So if this is going to become, I guess, an ongoing priority, what will be sacrificed or what would be cut to maintain this?
What will be cut by doing this? Well, absolutely. Well, let me be sure I understand your question. You mean in the existing budget or in the future budget?
In the future, or even now, how are you planning to get this money, or keep this money going? Where would the money come from, if that makes sense?
Well, the money would come from the ongoing generated sales tax and property tax, primarily revenues. So the money is not one-time money. It will be regenerated absent some economic downturn. And in fact, it will be regenerated at a lower tax levy. So the people will be paying less, but getting some more things fixed by virtue of the growth in the city, for example.
And what caused the lowering of the tax levy? Or you proposed 1 million last year, and now it's 1 million, correct? This year, not for the
Yes.
levy, but for the.
Well, when we mentioned that I proposed 1.5, that was in discussing individually with council people what seemed to me to be a reasonable level of compromise between reducing the levy and providing additional revenues. But we all had different ideas about that. And what ended up was not 1.5, but 1 million. That's completely okay with me, and I think okay, generally speaking, with the rest of the council. They can speak for themselves.
The council had passed, we won't take advantage of the windfall resolution. Do the council members think that this falls within the spirit of that resolution?
Well, I'll let the council people respond to that. I most certainly thought it was within the spirit of it. I'm not sure why you would think it would not have been in the spirit of it. You wanted to respond?
I'll respond to that. First of all, I'm committed to returning the windfall from the valuation increase in existing properties. And this plan does exactly that. The increase was figured at $3.5 million, and that is exactly the amount that we are returning to taxpayers.
All right. Good to go? Thank you very much for covering it and getting the word out for us. Have a good day. Thank you. Roy, thank you.